Hello and welcome back to the dive in our brand new spanking shiny studio. Look at this. It's just beautiful. This is still presented by Honda. This is our season 5, episode number 20. How do you feel, Mark?
I feel great. We're in studio. Next time you try and go on about something, I'm going to be like, no. And I can actually stop you physically.
I mean, you could have done that before. You could have said, shut up. You could have said no. You never did, Mark. You never did.
Now I can unplug your microphone.
I feel like that's more effort. That's more work.
Maybe you can get like some real long, like clippers. Just
one of those
arms.
Those those things that you use the grabbers to pick up trash, like the dinosaur head on.
Yeah, I used to have it as a kid.
It does that, but just closes your mouth.
Grab your lip.
It's
Oh man.
First order of business.
Yeah.
I've called you all here today at our dive V table
To gloat.
to gloat. We have officially 3-0'd face check in the first week of our fantasy league.
It wasn't just a 3-0. It was a slaughter. It wasn't even close. All three of us had more points than their highest performer by a significant margin. Azael was leading the charge.
It was easy too. Not much to say.
I'm looking forward to a whole season of just beating them down.
Yeah, exactly. I love how we were talking about before the draft, like, oh man, Gabby last split, Tigers just slaughtered us all with all these C9 players. So LS gets the 3 C9 and then he's immediately last place. C9 had a terrible week.
Thank you for the Flash Ward kill. That game single-handedly, I think, gave a couple of their players a nice dent in their points. We should get right into week 1 though, because our week 1 was so exciting. Being back here, yes, in the studio, but the teams also delivered. The teams are like, you know what? We're going to add extra spice. There's flame everywhere. We got surprise benchings. We'll start with the good, though. Honda MVP. Who is your standout performer for week 1?
For me, I've got to go Destiny. I think Destiny actually had a great week. The Nautilus games, the Thresh games. I mean, yeah, the Flash prediction or whatever it was. It was Dash prediction, Flash prediction.
It was a safeguard prediction to the ward jump, and the angle was pretty good.
We'll call that a Dash prediction, I guess. But that was really nice. I think he was playing incredibly well, and this is like the first full weekend where I'm like, okay, Immortals, things are actually coming together, and I thought that. It's so big for Raze and Destiny because I do think there's been so much credit kind of given to a lot of the other spot laners and some of these bot lanes, and everyone really has been overlooking them. They haven't been very impressive. In spring, they didn't look good at all. So I think it's a huge weekend for them, build a little bit of confidence and get a little bit of swagger in their step.
It's a very heartwarming choice. I really like that choice because I also agree on the bottom lane as a package. That was a record-setting game that they ended the weekend with. Biggest gold difference at 15 in LCS history for the bottom lane. Then doing it themselves. It wasn't like, oh, they've got this crazy concocted plan. Xerxes down there 24/7. They did it themselves in lane.
The difference was like an IE, a full IE.
They were 2.5 items or something at 15 minutes. They had boots and 2 completed. A Phantom Dancer at 14 minutes. And then,
that's disgusting. A 2v8. People who throw around 1v9 all the time. That was a 2v8. My answer is not going to be as heartwarming, but the question is worded as standout performer.
Oh no, Kobe.
Not just MVP, best player. And this is not all negative, okay? But this player stood out in multiple different ways, okay? And I'm going with Perks because first standout performance is, of course, one of the most fun that everybody had memeing. It's basically the most famous player in our league now. After the big purchase to bring Perks over, this decorated Western player coming back from MSI, and the freaking game on Renekton where all of Cloud9 as a team, they're just skipping so many things. They're not tracking enemy jungle. They have no vision at all. They're flash stunning, killing wards in 2v1s. Yeah, he wouldn't have killed a champion if he was on the champion anyways, but it just makes it that much more funny. So that stands out right next to an incredibly good game the next day. And so he's still standing out just for the complete opposite
you forgot
reasons.
the one before as well, the Viego game that they lost.
The tank Viego.
Dude, that one was actually, that was a cool game too. He made some really good usage of like taking over the other characters, like killing off Leona. You take the Leona and then like Zenith blade in on the carry and then ult back in on him.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It was like, I was starting to get sold on this tank Viego. I was like, yeah, it's working. Until the key members started getting slept by Zoe bubbles. But then on to the final game for Cloud9. I really wanted to emphasize how much he dumpstered top lane by controlling the wave. And he even used his body. Going back and looking at Pro View, he trades health to let Lulu attack him to draw minion aggro so that the minions are not killing his opponent minions and building up even a bigger wave. It was both like thinking about the game so much more than the previous one, plus then the individual performances on Sylas, which is a champion where you can have wide varying degrees of performances, much like Viego. So that for me was a standout.
I'm going to go Sword Art. TSM 3-0'd. They looked really good doing it too. And it was a lot of different people you could pick from TSM. But I really liked the first game against Team Liquid where he took the rail into the really annoying bot lane of Karma Ezreal. And they were kind of losing a lot of plates and in trouble. And they still were able to rally, come back into that game. And I thought that was really impressive to just be like, no, I don't care how hard this laning phase is going to be. Like, this is a good champ for me. I'm going to be able to carry on it. And then overall, the rest of the weekend, he was pretty solid. I think Huni stood out more, you could argue, but he had some up and down plays. PoE was very consistent as well, but I thought Sword Art was the one for me that I was like, hey, this is what you need to see for TSM fans, because he was one of the people who was underperforming at the start of last split when they were struggling.
Absolutely agree. All right, on to the Apple Podcast reviews. Got yourself a fan this week, Kobe.
I'm excited.
This one comes from Cheney Core.
I don't know if you're trolling or not. Sometimes if Azael intros it like that, it could
you can look. It's in your doc.
You can't look. I told him not to.
Oh, okay.
Listen, I know the meta is to shut down MarkZ, but I'm not here to do that. I want to put up Kobe for president. Azael is Canadian, so he's automatically out, even though he's likely closest to the age requirement. Kobe's older than me, by the way. Mark is, well, he's Mark. Need I explain further? No, you definitely don't.
Kind of went back on that first sentence right out the gate.
Kobe has the most hype and is the most lighthearted person on the show and the broadcast for the LCS. He's not the loudest voice in the room. Maybe that, but I believe in his leadership skills. Anyway, this is a review for the show, and I think it's probably your best comprehensive LCS breakdown podcast out there. Highly recommended. Hat for Kobe, Kobe for president. All right, TL C9, big roster swaps, some very surprising ones. The C9 one, the news came out prior to the weekend, which I think makes the TL one even more surprising. You know, obviously King came in for Sven, but it was like pre-announced.
Yeah,
I was more shocked by the TL one because it happened after one game. Alfari was literally second in MVP voting last split. He was first team All-Pro, pretty much unanimously agreed upon as the most dominant, not even just top laner, but the most dominant laner in the league. Plays one game, benched. And even the way that it was announced, you know, Jat basically saying, like, it wouldn't be fair to talk about all the reasons, but it's like pretty clear it's not about performance. It's pretty clear there's some other things going on. Even just the way that it's delivered is like, oh my God, like how bad was the environment? Like how poorly was he acting, or what were the issues that were so huge that it couldn't even wait till the end of the weekend?
I don't know. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm sad about in the modern LCS, I guess you could say, is like there's just no information given at all. I mean, like you could argue that maybe sometimes in the past there was a little too much information given in some instances, but I think even fans, like it's got to be frustrating to just get literally no insight given, you know, like, oh, we just can't talk about it. Same situation with this Ven thing. The most that we got, you could say, was from the 9 show where Monty was asking Max Waldo about it, and I had missed it. I just saw the clip recently on Reddit, but they said like he's probably not coming back for summer.
No, yeah,
and that's the most information that you get.
Yeah,
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I saw that coming into last week's episode as well, and I was just like, what the heck? For the Alfari one, there's two ways to look at it, because a lot of outside perspective and fans are gonna be like, okay, one game and then you bench him, like it's got to be a reaction to that. But that seems so ridiculous to me that you then have to think that maybe it is something that's been going on during off season, since we get no info on this team, you know, and everybody's just looking at Cloud9. Everybody's minds are all on that. And so it feels like this knee jerk, you know, quick reaction. But it might be more along the lines of like, okay, they were working through some stuff and then they're like, all right, we're really trying to work through it. So we'll try LCS. And as soon as, you know, whatever happens, that last one, they're like, okay, we got to cut this, you know, and we have to make the change now. But to your point about, you know, volumes of information given, I would never argue that teams gave too much info, even if it's detrimental and like it causes this big drama thing for fans and for, you know, the outside perspective. They always want more info to be able to, like, you know, make these boards and connect all the dots and have all the theories and stuff.
Even just from an engagement perspective, like, it's just harder to know what's going on in the scene. You just feel like, okay, well, I guess my favorite player is now not playing.
I mean,
okay. And I feel like it's good, even if it hurts sometimes in the short term, that like generally for fan engagement to have, you don't have to, like I said, blast your players, but at least give some information.
So, I mean, for me, for fan engagement, it makes sense. But like full, if you're just giving up all the info, right? What it doesn't help is the player, right? So especially like, you know, let's just pretend it is attitude issues. We don't know exactly what it is, right? If Alfari is just roasting everyone after the games or whatever, then coming out and being like, yeah, it turns out that like our player's just being a colossal asshole to everyone else on the team, and no one likes him anymore, so no one wants to play with him, and he's going to be benched. And like, how does that help your team or your players in any way, especially knowing that there's a high chance that this player is so good and will likely, like, they want to like discipline him and say, hey, you got to work on these things, but likely he's going to be coming back at some point. And we don't know exactly like what the issue was, but everyone is speculating that it's attitude. So I just don't think that it does the players any favors to really come through it and do that, because then it's like that is all everyone's going to be focused on, right?
Of course not.
Yeah.
And Team Liquid has a history with this, with putting out their documentary, which
well, not even Breaking Point. I was part of the people that benched Piglet and brought it back, but we publicized it and like we were trying to be transparent, and you can do it in a classy way that doesn't like blast the player. And I think that's like, it's too easy to straw man like sharing information and letting people know what's going on with your team, with the extreme version like, well, people are just going to roast the player or whatever. Because you can, I think, find a middle ground that allows some insight into the org and like what you're struggling with, and like helps connect with your fans and stuff, and just putting up a stone wall and like, well, that's what it is right now.
And when I was arguing for you know, like always getting more info, I'm not arguing from the perspective of the team or the player. I would be very clear. Yeah, it's not in their best interest to fully air out all their dirty laundry. Like that's not gonna. That's like, it's like an employee and employer. If you're burning bridges and fighting at the end, that's, you know, that's not going to be good for, you know, for either of them. But it is interesting and gives more, you know, stuff to work with.
It is. And like, to your point, Mark, they could say, hey, we're benching Alfari because of attitude issues, right? But like, that's kind of, to me, like the middle ground, and maybe you have a different point of view, but like that doesn't really feel like it tells me much more anyway, right? And a lot of times I feel like teams just kind of give these like generic reasons which like aren't really telling you anything anyway. So like I don't really care, and like I get why they don't want to, you know, provide more insight and create it into a bigger thing than it already is, because you're trying to also kind of like manage relationships within the team, right? You're trying to keep this team together, and the players not, you know, arguing and getting more stressed out and kind of exacerbating the issues. So it is interesting.
I also do think it's funny because it does feel like in esports, because fans are so much closer and feel like they are much more hands-on, when there are roster changes for esports teams, fans are digging even more than you know, other scenarios, because they really want to be able to, like, you know, give their opinions and judgments and tinker, as far as the closeness of social media and like playing the actual game with the players. And so then we have people from solo queue chiming in and are like, yeah, and this player was in my solo queue game last night and he was flaming, or he said this and that means this, and all these types of things.
I mean, it's also the fact that a lot of players stream too, so you just see more like traditional sports players. Like, okay, you see them on the court, you might see some interviews after, and like maybe their Twitter. Whereas in this, like you said, there's a lot more avenues to see people. Like there's all these shows that are kind of going around with them that you get to learn a little bit about them over the course of it. But yeah, I feel like this is an entertainment product. We're not like building cars here, like we do want some insight. It's part of the package. And I think that's something that a lot of people have become, I would say, worse at time as a pro player, is like understanding the entertainment part of your job. I think it's something that people haven't been as good at for a long time.
Yeah.
And this is obviously moving offside. Like, I'm going to tell you why I got benched in like a vlog kind of thing. But I'm not saying Dunzo Manifesto, but
yeah. And maybe we will get additional insight in the coming days. Also, to be fair to them, it's like if this is a decision that's made literally after Friday games, like that night, you don't really have a lot of time to like put together the content piece or whatever. So maybe we'll get more insight in the coming weeks. I think one way or another we probably will. But TL and C9 obviously not having the starts that they would want, right? I think some people were kind of expecting, especially C9, coming back from MSI, maybe a little bit of burnout. They started scrimming later. The roster swap came through. So like all these things were adding up to like my expectations were lowered for Cloud9 for week 1. I already knew I wasn't going to put like a tremendous amount into how they did as far as like my kind of like evaluation of the team. I had not heard until just you guys told me earlier, though, that like apparently Sven is not coming back at all.
Probably not. Yeah.
I think that changes things a lot. I mean, Sven has been such a rock for that team, and though I think King did fine, it didn't feel like he like stood out really one way or the other too much. I think the Kaisa game was pretty strong, but Sven was like such a strong carry and also like a really good laner for this team for so long. So, it is concerning for Cloud9. We'll have to see how they develop over the next couple of weeks because, of course, they're incorporating King into the team. But like, geez, this is your championship team, and they had so many close games at MSI. Yeah, they underperformed to like what they wanted to do. They ended up getting 5th, losing most of their games. But it's so many close games. You kind of felt like, oh, if you can stay positive on that and improve over summer, like you could do pretty well at Worlds.
I even want to broaden it from it's concerning for Cloud9 to, since we have this wider topic and multiple examples now, this is concerning for all of the North American LCS and our world's hopes. Our top 2 teams have benched some of their best star players, and while the teams themselves very clearly and obviously think it is for the better, and they have more info, longer time, all this inside stuff, scrims, how people work together, all that type of, stuff comes together. It looks very scary from the outside perspective because you're judging on, on the Rift performances and stuff like that. And so that's why it gets concerning for me, for a whole region, for our whole league, if our top teams are making adjustments like that. Yes, summer is longer. We've got 27 games. Everyone's like, we can work through some stuff. But I'm starting out with like heart palpitations here. We came back from 5th at MSI and we want to like build on all the knowledge that we got and all of the learnings. And we're like, boom, boom, fires everywhere. and stuff is just, fireworks are going off, Mark.
Don't have heart palpitations if it's already stopped beating.
What is dead may never die.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it obviously is just regionally sad. You don't even need to look to looking forward to Worlds. Just domestically, it sucks where like your finals rematch is like, okay, we just benched 2 of the players for this like finals rematch on Sunday, and I'm really sad about that because, like you're saying, Alfari was being built up to be this rising star, best top laner, potential MVP. Who knows where it's going to go from there after his first split. And it just feels like kneecapped out from underneath you. It sucks, and I'm just disappointed.
You know what I thought was even more funny and enjoyable out of the Cloud9 Team Liquid rematch is that we're just talking about how fans in esports, they really want to get hands on and they want to backseat GM and they want to give all their opinions and meme. Cloud9 members the team that benched one of their star players first is memeing, and not even memeing, but they're all like tweeting out like bring back Alfari after Team Liquid benched him after their game. And it's like even the team that first benched one of their, star players, benching Sven, is like, hey, Team Liquid, you're screwing up benching Alfari, one of your big players. And they're calling for it too. So it's like everybody wants their hands in.
I mean, but for the new guys, not that bad of a showing, I'd say. I mean, Jenkins got put up against Gwen twice, right? Won the first one against Finn, and then I forget who he played the lane against.
And he was like 40, 50 CS up.
Yeah, he was slamming Finn. And people were talking about getting jungle help, and he got some, but it was more like good timings out of Santorin more than like he got turbo camped. Like he already had a 20 CS lead, I'm pretty sure, through the first like 3 or 4 levels by the time like the first Scuttle Crab contest even happened on the top side. So like it was something where Jenkins had a pretty good showing. It felt like he got left to the wolves a little bit with it's like, all right, you're going up against Gwen, dude, have fun. And I thought he looked pretty good. King, like you said, he's not going to be the focal point of this team no matter what. It feels like, it's still very much a Blabber and Perks show, and the Kaisi game he was able to follow up a lot better. And the issues that they were having didn't feel King specific, like with the Golden Guardians comeback and stuff. So I think there's a lot of room for both teams to grow still.
Yeah. I mean, also for me, like on the positive side for TL, I thought, even in some of the losses, Tactical was actually looking really good. It felt like Tactical was like on the verge of kind of like one of those 1v9 performances when they were playing against, I guess it was TSM in the season opener, right? Where they were down against TSM for so long, and like they started to battle back and hold on, and the game was starting to stall out. And I thought Tactical was having like a really good Ezreal game to be able to kind of draw that one out. So I definitely think that there are positives there, and we'll have to see. Like the Alfari one, maybe he's going to be back next week. We obviously don't really know exactly how long that's going to land. I'm pretty surprised about Sven potentially being a split long thing, but it's an incredibly long split, right? So there's a lot of time. I'm not going to get doom and gloom about like World's hopes, in week 1 of summer when we have 27 games to play in summer. So I really had so much fun watching this weekend, and I was pretty unfazed by the fact that like 2 of our teams didn't look as good because they made big swaps, right? When we're looking at some of the other top teams, TSM looked friggin' great, right? They didn't make any changes, and they came out with some really aggressive looks. They 3-0'd the weekend. They're at the top of the standings for the first time since 2018 summer, so first time in 3 years. So like, there's a lot of hype around TSM, and I thought it was really cool the way that they did it, right? Like we got the PoE Viego game, we got a lot of these heavy dive comps with the Rumble Nocturne, and it felt like it was going against a lot of the things that TSM is often criticized for. Like when they are at the top, it's usually like, yeah, but you play so slow and you just wait for the other team to fail. And like they were kind of going out there and getting it, and it was fun to watch.
I got a question for both of you. I'll pose this. TSM stays at the top of the standings for the rest of the split, yes or no? Do they ever lose first place?
I think ever lose first place
for the rest of the split.
Yeah, I think
their main competition just went 1 and 2 on both of them and benched their players
in the opening weekend. Okay, on the analyst desk, second day when I'm with Mark. Okay, to give you context of how much I think like his questions and his reactions have been super extreme. It's literally day 2, and we're talking about Cloud9, and Mark's like, I already hit the panic button.
All right. This is a joke.
The glass is broken.
This was a joke because as soon as King got first blooded in the first game that they played, I said bring Sven back as a joke. He thinks I'm like actually panicking.
I mean, like, it's to your earlier point about like doom and gloom. I don't think there's any doom and gloom around. Like, it's more like fire and explosions and like everybody's exciting, and there's all this like, it's the beginning of an action movie basically, with how much conflict has gone on, and I think there will continue to be these like roller coasters. So if I was gonna bank on anything, it would not be stability in standings. So I'm gonna definitely say, yeah, at some points they get overtaken, especially because their lead on the standings is not large.
I think at some point they'll give it up, but like right now, I mean, if you're thinking both these teams are going to maintain their roster swaps, I wouldn't be surprised at all if TSM finishes first place in the regular season. I mean, it's an incredibly long split, so like we don't know if these things are actually going to stay, right? If Alfari and Sven never come back in, I'd be happy to bet on TSM finishing first.
I bet on them staying first.
No matter what, even with the Rockets
never losing it. They're one game lead.
That happens more than you think. C9 literally was in first place the entire split until this weekend. I think it happens more than you think, even with tied or like leads. I'm not saying no one ever ties them. Maybe they get tied, but they have continued to improve week over week since lock-in tournament, when they were abysmal and everyone's like, bring in Hanser, screw Loss, where's Double Lift, Sword Art, $6 million trash can, all those are dead. That's all gone.
I didn't hear that one, Azael. Did you hear that one?
That was a Mark one.
It might have been in my head. I don't know where it came from, but I
out.
definitely heard it somewhere. But I think that they look really good. They don't really have, I feel like, that much competition at the top of the standings. Other than 100 Thieves is maybe the second currently strongest team right now. It's hard to say. Immortals, maybe, in terms of raw strength right now. TSM has continued to improve. I think they play a really stable style because as much as they did do more dive stuff and worked in the Viego and whatnot, they also usually had a pretty stable core around it. It wasn't like they went like some of the C9 comps where it's like triple melee dive, here we go. They still had the Oriana games, PoE.
Well, they did do triple melee dive with Nocturne, Rumble, Viego. It's not like they would do something ridiculous like triple melee.
Rumble doesn't. I don't know why it doesn't feel like a melee quite to me, but.
I mean,
I was thinking like the Gwen Viego Silas game. That was like when I was thinking that's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I still think that they play a really stable style overall, and I would expect them to.
I like the resolve. Don't listen to these naysayers over here, Mark.
How long is Rumble's ult range? It's not a melee.
How long is Gwen's ult range?
Nocturne's ult range. Not a melee.
Gwen is shooting little needles out.
You both raised good points. I respect the resolve from Mark, though. Yeah. I like it. Take a stand for TSM. I think one of the big things too for TSM, and despite some people saying that Spica hasn't gotten a lot of airtime, I feel like he actually has. It's one of those to me where there's more people saying that Spica is underrated.
Xmithy is so underrated.
Yeah.
No one gives any credit to Xmithy.
And it keeps happening, and people are like, man, really, Spica's been delivering here, because he actually got a decent amount of votes as well. For several of the player of the games, several of the even player of the week at the end of the week. So I definitely think you have some good momentum to ride on here, Mark.
Yeah. I don't know. Are we going to do a bet about it?
Ooh.
Are you taking the side of TSM will never relinquish first? I mean,
they might get tied. Like I said, someone might.
Yeah, Kobe's most on the other side. So why don't you two do that?
Okay, I'm ready to throw down. I'll do a bet. I'll say TSM do give up first place. Like they're not even tied for first place. That's what we want to draw the line at, right? At some point during the season.
I'm saying that they never are out of first place.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Chat. What?
Let's see it.
End of week.
We'll come up with what we're actually.
You said
betting.
End of split.
No, but I meant over the course of the split, they won't drop from it at the end of the week.
Oh, okay.
The league PDF standings that says the thing.
Okay.
Oh.
I'm saying they will first the entire week over week.
I'll still take it. I'll still take it.
All right, gentlemen, shake on your bet.
I'm in. Yeah, we're still gonna
do a little
COVID safe,
foot five
COVID safe shake there.
I think that's legally or at least morally binding.
Okay.
Yeah, spiritually binding.
You touch feet. That's like, whew, this is almost a relationship.
I think you guys are dating now.
And it was on camera.
We live close enough by. I'll come by to cook. I don't know.
We're actually gonna have to blur that out in post.
True.
Fix it in post.
Feet comes at a premium.
You gotta pay for the.
That's
gotta get the dive premium.
You have to get the unlocked here to get the foot handshake.
To get the foot cams.
Okay. So for the bet, are we gonna do some type of cosplay, some type of dance or something? Because we're back in studio, so we're gonna do something physical.
Ezreal costume from Azael has not been used. I know he's supposed to make good on it, but we don't even remember what the bet is at this point.
Well,
man, see, this is how he gets out of having to style the hair.
I'm totally down for this. So we were talking about this earlier. We had a bet pre-COVID. I don't even remember what it was for, but I lost the bet and I had to do a cosplay. So I ordered this Ezreal costume. It took 3 months to come, first of all, and then by the time it came, we were at the very start of COVID, and I was like, "Mark, do you want me to do this from home?" And he's like, "No, that's lame. We won't even be able to see it. We'll just see your shoulders." And I'm like, "Well, all right. I'll just wait till we're back in studio." Little did I know that was going to be a year and a half.
I think this bet is from 2019, and
it is.
Remember it?
I'm pretty sure it is from 2019, and then it took months for it to come, and it came in 2020, and then by the time it actually came, we were in COVID. I mean, I don't know if we just really want me to just wear it, we can, or we can do some other.
I was saying
bet
we can
where,
just repurpose it for this bet. You can get out.
Oh,
if the people who make a bet can't remember,
or next time I lose something,
we can
I'm happy to
combine
wear
them.
it.
You dress up in the Ezreal cosplay. I'll be a different one, and then we have like a duel.
I like how you already know that you lost too. He's like, I'll be.
All right, well, I am fine with doing this because I do know that I lost a bet. So how about just whichever one of you loses also has cosplay, and then I will cosplay.
And you duel.
And then the one person who wins the bet will be the only person who isn't looking ridiculous in a cosplay.
Man, you're gonna be the one left. I'm gonna be the one left out then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it actually winning at that point? Because then you're just kind of left out.
Well, I mean, they can dress up too if they want. But I mean, then it doesn't feel like this is much of a bet on the line here. All right, we'll figure it out.
Let us know what bet we forgot about with Azael from 3 years ago.
Yeah,
in the
that's
meantime,
a long time ago. All right,
yeah.
Overreaction. Immortals criminally underrated.
I don't think it's an overreaction.
We put them 9th collectively in our power ranking.
I think that is just hard. That is hard truth. Okay, and there
Only
are reasons.
Absolute buffoons.
There are
would put
reasons
them
for it.
9th place.
And hold on there with the buffoon talk. You can throw it around. That's fine. But we did have actual reasons.
Only one absolute buffoon.
Xerxes did not play nearly as well last split.
Yeah.
Not even close. Spamming Lilia Hecarim. I even talked about it on the analyst list. Like when he got signed, that last split was a total letdown for me. That was not what I was looking for him. The versatility was not there. The leadership was not there. Comes out here. The meta is perfect. Rumble is one of the premier picks. He's been playing Rumble since season 7, Unicorns of Love days, and he is for sure the best Rumble in the league. Yes, Dardoch had a really good game as well, but I still say Xerxes best Rumble jungle in the league. And with him coming out and them getting Rumble in the first 2 games and having these big performances, and then the bottom lane has their 2v8 actual stomping game, like there's no other way. There's no way you can't say they were criminally underrated, even if we had reasons.
Do you agree then?
Yeah, I think if I was going to redo my power rankings right now, I'd be like, all right, where am I putting them?
That's where I want to challenge.
You're like,
that.
CLG.
Well, yeah, so that's the other
Immortals,
part where is another part of this equation. It's not independent variables. But yeah, I would probably raise them all the way up to 6th or 7th. I have to look because EG as well was struggling. We'll have to get into all that, but I would definitely put them closer to top half of the league.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about them too was we talked about the Xerxes improvement, but there was also the soul laners being much more consistent. The bot lane absolutely popped off where that felt like that almost never happened in spring.
Actually never happened, yeah.
The Blitzcrank game from Destiny last split. Like they had one.
Yeah, it's like you're like going through the mud trying to find like where this game was. This is like 2 or 3 games in a row where it's like, wow, they look really good.
Yeah.
And then they have really solid drafts. They obviously knew what they wanted to play. They got the Rumble set a couple times in a row before they were finally forced to adapt on Sunday.
You just reminded me as well. Not only was it on the Rift gameplay, but it was social media gameplay.
They were popping
baby.
off on social media too.
Funnest part about you coming back for week 1 is people are ready to flame, and revenge was right in there. Then you had even after moving teams. You have Revenge talking about his solo matchup, and then bringing in Curry, who now actually coaches TSM. So it was like a third party just
they were like
blowing him out of the water.
All over the place.
Yeah,
that was hilarious actually.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the tweets, you can just look at go to Revenge's Twitter to start at the beginning and follow through with the responses because it's a good time.
So I'm okay with like 5th. Maybe is a bit too high for me. Like I think they were underrated. They beat Golden Guardians, CLG, and 100 Thieves in that first game where I thought 100 Thieves drafted really poorly. So I think Immortals looked a lot better, but I'm not going to go like all in on like, I saw some people saying like they're worlds bound and and I'm like, okay, like take a deep breath here. It's 1 week, right? I am willing to put them up maybe like 7th, 6th, something like that. I'll give them a little bump, but I'm not. Is that criminally underrating them?
I would say yeah, because we had them down to 9, and we were pretty secure. We were pretty sure about
not
it.
Not
an
an overreaction.
So we're criminals.
Okay, we're all criminals. We're under.
We're going to analyst jail.
I think we should just permanently stay there. We have enough bad takes.
Get some bars up here, and we'll just do the show from jail.
All right. On. Well, this can be the jail. He's the person.
The
worst take. You can do the show from the cubby.
Okay.
Okay. Overreaction. We super overrated CLG and EG. Are these teams garbage?
I would say we super overrated CLG. I wouldn't say that we super overrated EG because we did give the caveats of like, especially the variability of Jizuke.
Yep.
Which showed up more negatively, I think, in week 1 than maybe we were accounting for. But I don't think it was a super overrated. CLG, I definitely feel like I super overrated because I was like, all right, I'm going to go out there and it's going to be so much better than Spring that they're just going to slingshot ahead with they had Broxah the whole time this time and Finn the whole time. And
both of us were taking big gulps from that Kool-Aid. It was not good Kool-Aid. There's something in there.
We got a little overloaded with faith.
Yeah, because I mean, like they went to your point, they went 4-5 in the second round robin once they finally brought Pobelter back in. Yeah. You were like, okay, they'll like have this whole offseason to get better. Finn has looked good. Turtle was largely decent last year with Smoothie, even though they did have some out of lane issues. Like in lane, they looked okay, and you're hoping that continues. But this was kind of a disaster, and it felt starting 0-3 while already having a pretty bad record really probably hurts morale, and I got to imagine it's going to be hard to bounce back, which is why I feel pretty good about saying like we overrated them.
Yep. Yeah.
I would drop them down significantly, probably closer to 8 or 9 now.
Yeah. I feel like almost like they swap spots with Immortals.
Basically, yeah.
The EG one, I'm on the same page, I think, as Kobe at least, where like I don't think that they were criminally overrated because yes, they had a disaster weekend, but they actually could have or should have, depending on your point of view, won all 3 of those games, right? So it's like, is it bad? Is it a problem that they threw all these games with big leads? Did Jizuke have a lot of really bad performances?
Yes,
absolutely, yes. Yeah. But it was also cool. Danny was really good. Danny was actually one of the standouts. I thought he played really well.
That's the mirror game, man.
Yeah, the Samir game. I actually thought his Jinx game as well. He was playing really well. It didn't necessarily like result in a lot of kills because they were kind of playing from behind. But like I thought he was actually getting a lot of damage out. He's playing a lot of team fights really well. His lane phase in that game was really good. They were up like 20-30 CS with the Jinx Thresh lane, I believe it was, into Tristana or something. So they had a good lane. But yeah, I mean, Jizuke has bad weekends. I don't think he is going to have every game look like this, where it's just like it's thrown games, because people I think are being a little bit overcritical. It's like he gets himself into good positions too, right? Like he did create some really good advantages. Yes, he got some help from the teams and things like that, but like in both the Tristana games, he was in really good spots. So it's like you can't completely discount all the work that was done to get to that spot. You can, of course, heavily criticize for not then capitalizing on your big advantage to be able to win the game. But I think EG is still going to pick up a lot of wins throughout the split.
I mean, yeah, even it was the FlyQuest game where they like basically were fountain diving as they should have been killing the Nexus. Like that's not like I don't think
he was leading the charge.
He was leading the charge, but did he mind control Danny to go in too? Because like couldn't Danny just sat back and hit?
He did. Yeah,
you think he mind controlled all 4 other members of his team? He like hacked their keyboards and took over.
He had the flamethrower, actually.
Get in there, Danny.
It reminds me of the Gnomish engineering
mind control cap.
From WoW, like way back in the day. And he was like, head down, boom, charge in.
I mean, like anyone on that team could have been like, okay, bye, Jizuke. You buy space for me while I hit these Nexus
You check the team comms and he's like, Danny, dive with me, you're benched. And then he's like, yes, sir.
But I mean, to that point,
it's a young, impressionable AD carry. He just got promoted straight from amateur. He's like, okay, I'm following.
The point larger being that they were in a position to win some of these games, whereas like CLG felt way more pressed throughout the whole weekend.
I will say too on the Jizuke point, because I also feel bad sometimes when it's so easy for everyone to just instantly dogpile back on. It's because it's this reoccurring story that surrounds him. And so when something like that happens and gets attached to you, it's kind of his brand now. So if anything like that happens, like if he gets picked off one time in mid game, everyone's immediately ready to be like, it's the Jizuke. Just look for him in the middle of the game if you can make a comeback. But like, it's sticking,
And I mean, the other problem with this is like it flattens a lot of the analysis around the rest of the team. Like, hey, you counterpicked Gnar with Kennen and then got blasted and got heavily outperformed.
Impact got a really bad.
Yeah, Impact looked bad. And I mean, like the vast majority of the conversation around EG is going to be Jizuke dying and these bad base situations that they got into also in the TSM game. But like, why is your Kennen getting, like, this is your counter pick, getting blasted time over time, and Huni's finding flanks in all these situations, and like those are bad plays that are not really related to, and it just becomes a story.
It's just the most flashy, also, right? Like he was up the first Tristana game. He's up what 120, 140 CS. Like he was monstrously strong, right? Got tons of plates, massive CS advantage by the end of the game. So it was just those situations where it's like he's playing a champion that you expect to carry the game, right? So your eyes are drawn to him, and then also the story. But I do feel bad because I do think that people go somewhat overboard on him, and it does feel like sometimes a little bit of a rewriting where it's like it almost feels like the narrative, at least from what I saw on Twitter, had moved from like Jizuke is inconsistent, like which is very true, like but to Jizuke is just trash, right? And I don't think that's fair because I do think that Jizuke, while he has some of the worst mistakes and should be criticized for that, like he throws games, he also does have over his years in the LCS some of like the most impressive like 1v9 hard carry style performances because he plays really risky and sometimes he does really pull it off and it looks great. So I do feel a little bit bad because I felt like people were going too far to the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I just wanted to elevate the stories of the other surrounding strategy and players like Mark is talking about. Looking at Danny, the positives here, the other choices that you get flamed for, not just the throwing the game, but like the macro choices, and that type of stuff. So definitely agree there. The last little bit I would add on to it though is that EG and Peter Dunn love building up new talent, and with the success of Danny, you got to be looking at Jojo Pion.
Got to be
You're like,
wiggling those glasses. Is that how you look?
I don't know why.
Your glasses don't improve your prescription
because exactly because it doesn't improve your vision unless anyways that's the last little
I don't get glasses. I don't have them. What's going on here?
So on to get in the hole, Mark.
100 Thieves then.
You know what you've done.
100 Thieves was super exciting. I definitely want to get your guys' first take on Abbedagge. But for me, I kept on coming back to this story of since week 1 was so exciting and there are so many just boom, immediately super strong reactions. One of the biggest and strongest reactions to 100 Thieves was the fact that they committed to putting Abbedagge on Karma. And it was more individualized criticism in the first game because they're like, this is the new player we've been waiting for so long. This is the most hype spring to summer change that any LCS team made. And so everyone's just like, boom, piling in on that. And I just loved how 100 Thieves, and it actually highlights the coaching change that they made too with Reaper. They were like, you know what? We hear and we see all this and we're just going to ignore that. We decided supportive mid, carry jungle is strong. This is what's been working for us in the new meta. People are still adjusting to all these changes with the new meta with so many melee heavy solo laners. And even after this big, backlash after the opener, they're like, get right back on that Karma, baby. And then they rack up 2 quick wins, with this kind of style. Yes, they also got Gwen in the later one, which
and they paired her with
muddies
it
a little bit.
Kog'Maw one time.
But I just liked that aspect because social pressure is a big thing since you are balancing your performance, also brand perception and all these types of things start to come in because these teams are businesses. So it's just cool to see when someone sticks to their guns, trusts themselves and their read on something and goes right back at it and then has success to be able to prove I mean
wrong. It's kind of thing too where I think some of the criticism was justified because the first draft was different than the other two. Like Xin Zhao gets more enabled by Karma than like Udyr, where it's like, okay, now you run extra fast, but you're still largely like magic damage heavy.
Xin does a lot more damage now, right? Especially after the Udyr nerfs too,
So like it's a better scrapping combination to take over mid lane and river and stuff and actually like fight people nonstop. And so overall that part was what changed. They also they got the Gwen the one time. They also got a Kog'Maw to be more of like a carry, even though Ezreal's nuts right now. And Karma does allow him to run forward or run back with his Qs. Overall, I thought their drafts were better. And I still think people want to see Abbedagge play carries, obviously, which was part of like the joking about it was just like, oh man, he came over and this is what we're doing with him, which I think is more like a sentiment than like actual criticism of just like, man, I want to see Abbedagge pop off. I don't want to watch the Karma.
Yeah. I mean, I did feel like it turned into criticism though. right? Like, and which is what I didn't like. I have no problem with saying, hey, I don't like a draft, or they didn't play it out well. What I didn't like was, after game one, the idea that it's like, he doesn't even play Karma. He's a carry guy. Like, why would you pick Karma for him? That's stupid, right? And it's like, well, sometimes just this is what's playing in the meta, right? And like, I cast the second game, and even before they played that game, I talked about how, hey, like, this is something that we've seen be successful and criticized a lot in the LCS in many examples, right? The most obvious example is always Bjergsen, because TSM fans would be roasting the TSM coach when they started playing Galio, when Galio was really meta and TSM was losing with it. Like, what are you idiots doing? Get Bjergsen on a carry. He's going to win you the game. And, in that split, they got comfortable with it, and it actually ended up winning them the split, right? They ended up using this a lot. And Bjergsen is like the most prolific North American LCS mid laner of all time, right? He played Karma. He played Lulu. He played Galio.
Zillion.
He played Zillion, right? Like, he will play these supportive styles if they're good. So, to me, criticizing Abbedagge for playing a different style while also praising other people for champion diversity is just like, doesn't make any sense, right? Like, if we're gonna on one hand be like, wow, Dardoch, you're so great, good job picking all those different champions, and then be like, Abbedagge, what are you doing, dummy? You're a carry guy, don't play Karma. Like, I hated that. But I do think that, sentiment quickly changed, obviously, after they started winning.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you realize it's just people looking through the lenses of, did you win, did you lose? And you can like or dislike these strong takes, but that's part of the fun of sports. It's just like, as spectators, the fans get to have super strong opinions and get to be outraged. You're feeling emotion. That's what draws you in.
Yeah.
And you get to be like, this guy's an idiot. And then they win and you're like, never mind. He's not an idiot.
Look, he proved all the haters wrong. I was in your corner the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same people doing both sides.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's me.
So
I get your point.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't really get upset either way. But it is really fun because everybody also likes criticizing results-based analysis, and it's almost even a meme. But then it always comes up, and so the best way of proving stuff like this is getting those wins. And that's why I was so, enamored with the story of them, sticking to it and then getting to turn it around like this after you get the wins. I think as just as a little caveat too, with the progression of their drafts, I do think they got better and better. I don't think they expected to be able to be handed Udyr. And then they're like, oh, wait, yeah, we got to get Udyr, right? Everybody complains, best jungler, number one jungler. And you're like, well, he is really fast and tanky and strong early game. Doesn't do as much damage, doesn't quite fit as well in these like little areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might be a reason. That's total, conjecture. But yeah, I definitely think that they progressively got smoother and more refined.
Yeah, and I'm happy about that overall, because we're talking about a potential power vacuum right now in the top of the standings. They were who everyone was kind of pegging as vying with TSM as potentially the third or fourth best team in the league right now. And I'm really excited to see where they go from here. Same way with Immortals in that sense, where like, okay, we saw what you did with these picks. What's going to happen when they ban the Xin or they ban the Karma or they take it away, or there's these little adaptations where they go from there, because Closer looked a lot better. Someday actually looked pretty good in some of the carry games that he had. And these are things that people have been asking for Someday for a long time. It's like, please carry, please 1v9. We know you can do it. And like, I don't think FBI looked as insane this weekend. There was that one game where he was Ezreal. I think it was the first one where it was kind of 1v9. But I think it's good to see other people helping him out, because it did feel sometimes like it was FBI versus the world last split.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think that if you were now saying, all right, C9, TL, you're down a peg with the troubles that you're having, well, all of a sudden it goes from TSM 100 Thieves, okay, we think you're competing for third for the last world spot, to maybe TSM 100 Thieves, maybe you're competing for the championship, right? Like Freak actually was telling me, and he even said it on broadcast, so it's out there, that like 100 Thieves is his pick to just win. Like, he thinks that they're just the best team in the LCS, and they will be the best team. So I thought that was a pretty spicy take, and we'll see if it does come true. But I was really excited by how well Closer and Abbedagge were working together. It wasn't in the way that I envisioned it, but like when we did our fantasy draft, right? Like I was kind of making a bet on 100 Thieves. I picked Closer a little bit earlier, and like a big reason was I was thinking, all right, big upgrade in the mid lane. we know how much it helps a jungler when you have a winning mid laner, because it just unlocked you to invade Raptors and unlocked you to take these objectives and take scuttles. And I wasn't in my head thinking, okay, he's gonna play Karma and support him. I was thinking, oh, he's gonna be on the carries and just like bopping people, and then they're gonna invade and kill people. But like this worked just as well. And one of the games where they had the Braum, and it's like they got ahead and they just kind of had this 3-man squad of Braum, Karma, and Xin running around. Braum is face checking everything. They see anyone and they're just chasing him down with the sped up Xin. And it worked really well. And it was cool to see like that core 3 working so well together, because I do feel like that's kind of the core of your team. And your top laner is kind of off doing their thing. Your AD's kind of off farming. And so if those 3 are working really well together, it spells good things for 100 Thieves.
Karma also still gets fantasy points, 39 and 40 in the second and third game.
Assists are worth quite a bit.
My perks got -5 points on Renekton.
Nice pick.
I told you, I was like, that second day, heard all the Cloud9 like actually gave negative points.
This is fun.
It's
like the guy with the fire.
I also wanted to emphasize the, not just the individual like players that everybody's looking at 400 Thieves, but again, the things that were missing as far as what made them strong previously. It was these early proactive plays, and it's a different look. And you're talking about this 3-man squad grouping up again. Those are the playmakers. These are the roles that need to roam around the most: the support, the jungle, the mid laner, and it's something that they lost towards the end of Spring Split and caused kind of the downfall when they're like, oh, our early tower dives where we're pushing the wave and then diving on the triple stacked cannon wave isn't working anymore. People are seeing this coming. They didn't really have backup plans, so it's kind of another angle to remain and push 100 Thieves to be pro.
What are you smiling about over there?
You just made a really funny face, and then it made me laugh. And then you looked over and you're like, you give me like another funny face. Like, why are you smiling?
I'm looking up Dig because we're about to.
I don't know. You just look.
I missed this. See, this never happened online because like. The camera's always on, all 3 at the entire time. So nobody
can't space out and look at your camera like an idiot and make someone laugh.
Yeah, nobody gets as weird. But this is reminding me that like back when we used to have like this would happen a lot.
Back when we had friends.
And it would sometimes even be when like Azael was making a point, and then he'd be like, "What the fuck did you just look at me for? What's wrong with your eye?"
I was looking up. You were going on about 100 Thieves. I thought we were about to end this.
You just had a funny expression. You just.
I wasn't. All right, clean it up, boys. Focus up here. Focus up here. We're gonna have to cut some of this, fix this in post as well. Okay.
We're gonna have to fix the whole episode in post. All right,
do it in post.
Dignitas is fun.
Question mark. You didn't.
Exclamation point.
You didn't read that part of the.
It is,
well,
it
because
is
I don't
it is
agree with the question mark. I think it's an exclamation point. Darius jungle. We got Lee Sin jungle. We're getting all kinds of fun stuff.
And I was so glad too, because and this is another one of the instances where I think that we actually were all kind of aligned, maybe to various degrees, on like,
we're smart.
Oh man,
true.
We're going to like smush the party. The party for Dignitas is over. No more party bus. Haha, that was fun. And when we have to admit, like I was right there too. I was like, okay, maybe it's over. It's probably going to be a little bit more.
When I thought you were complimenting us, I was really in agreement, and now I just.
I'm in agreement because I think we were all in that like, well, Dig's not going to be worse.
I never doubted them.
Other teams.
I knew it. I was thinking to myself on Sunday for sure it's a Darius jungle. They're going to be exciting.
Yeah.
All right, but
that's the best part is they just pick up right where they left off, and they're still getting these upset wins, even though they're at the top of the standings now. People are still like, wait a second, that's not an upset. Oh yeah, we should. Honestly, I know a lot of people are talking about their predictions being wrong. I took a lot of chances in the opening week because I heard so much like scrim stuff about like underperformances that were going to be probable, and got a lot of them. But even though I predicted Dignitas in a lot of these wins too, I was not. I was not secure in the story. And as soon as they start doing it again, and you see stuff like role swapping or, swapping Darius,
passing the Rumble around.
Right after Dardoch has this amazing Rumble game. And so even in Champ Select for that game, I'm like, all right, well, there's like, 0.001 chance that it's Darius jungle. We do have to mention it because of the buff stuff, damage on champions. And then like, we don't look at it until we're back in the game and we're like, whoa, there we go. We hit our 0.01% chance even after Dardoch Dark has that great Rebel performance was just so cool.
I think the picking up where they left off that you said is like the tagline for me about this weekend for them, because I was like, okay, they're not bad, but I think the other teams will start playing better and this and this. The EG game, they're pretty far behind, and they just start making plays to come back. Where like the Saligo E on Akali to hit Jizuke was nuts and just blew him up. He
on the
snuck it
TP
right
flank mid lane.
Yeah, that one was really good.
And tilt proof after the early game for him.
Yeah.
Saligo gets like 6 tilt proofs for that one.
Looking at the rest of the teams, I'm like, this is probably going to keep happening. Like Dig are good at team fighting and finding their moments. They don't tilt when they fall behind. Like they're probably going to pick up a couple more wins like this. And I think, we're talking about some of the other teams we might have been overrating, underrating. This is probably a little bit of an underrating for us, because I thought the other teams would, pick up some of the slack, but I think they're still going to be punishing everyone who's not 100% on the same page.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're the line, right? Or they ended up being that, where it's like you must be this tall to ride.
That's a high bar.
You must be this tall to challenge for
third place is the bar.
The line is tied at 3rd place right now. We're like,
we'll see. I'm not gonna like over buy in like in spring. It's like they started 4-2, right? And I still didn't believe like you're gonna win the championship. I still think that they are on the outside for going for Worlds.
I thought you were on the party bus. Well,
I'm on the party bus.
You're blaming us for being poo-poo.
The party bus doesn't have to win. The party bus is just about having a good time.
The party bus is just about having a good time and being competitive, right? One thing I would say that I really like Freak's take on this, where it's like there's been a lot of talk and for myself included and everyone talking about, okay, they had a lot of these wins that felt like, should you have really won it? It's like they win this crazy fight at Elder, or they have a base defense or some sort of situation. They're often behind, but they pull out a win, and it's like, should you have got those wins? And Freak was basically like, well, they're actually just like incredible. They're the best team fighting team in the league, right? So it's like their early game and their laning and stuff, he thought was really their problem. And when you look at it through that lens, like a lot of these like random wins or crazy wins make more.
Be careful with the freak lens, but continue.
make more sense. I kind of like this take. I don't necessarily agree. I don't necessarily agree exactly that they are the best team fighting team. But I think it's like, hey, if you're looking at it through that lens, I think it's pretty cool. And most of their comebacks were through 5v5. It's through showing up at an Elder, out team fighting a team through a heroic base defense in a 5v5. You talk about the Akali E, that was off a TB flank. That's with EG massively ahead, pushing up mid lane, looking like they're in a position to win. And
they just overstep.
And it's exactly. They're capitalizing on this mistake. They're not necessarily good at getting themselves into these positions consistently where they're playing from an advantage. They often are playing from a disadvantage, whether their lanes are weaker or they take bad fights or if they're not as good at objective control and macro early game. But they are really good in late game 5v5 at finding different angles, at actually challenging for TP flanks and looking for plays even when they're losing. And Afro and Neo seem to most excel in the 5v5 as well. So looking at them through that lens, I like it.
Yeah, I actually did for day 2 Dignitas intro a special analyst desk segment where we slow-mo replayed with pauses their critical comeback team fight and how they use spacing and avoiding and keeping these specific CC abilities of their opponents in mind while team fighting from a deficit in gold. And there's like these 3 instances where Saligo, Dardoch, and Fake God are dodging out on these key abilities. They make literally even Nautilus Ultimate Whiff by going into Shroud to make him have to recast it on just a single Leona, and dodging out on set, E-clap and all these abilities, and highlighting that for this team because, to the point, and I might not go to the extreme of they're the best team fighting team in the league or whatever, but
I probably wouldn't.
But that
but it's cool.
But yeah, exactly. That angle, definitely a proponent of.
I give 100% of the credit to Afromu. If you ever listen to his comms and team fights, he's often like, watch this, watch that, and calling out enemy ability uses instead of his own a fair amount. So there you go. That's why 100%.
100%.
I know this.
Again, I'm not
assigning credit, regardless of.
So one of the things though is that I do think Saligo deserves to get more credit. So that's why I'm definitely not, giving
Afromu actually
out
reaches
100%ers.
past Neo and plays Saligo's keyboard.
I'm glad that we're in person so you can see it now.
Yeah.
Watch very carefully.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
His arm is really long, goes around.
Because he has to go around 80 carry too.
And did you see the extra little pad next to him? It's like when you're a driver in training and you have the instructor. The instructor's got the brake for him. After Mui is able to hit the brakes.
It's just like Azonia's on a member on the team. Like, nope, you're
like, I got you. Stop it.
Yeah. That's wow, very impressive stuff. Maybe he should be our MVP. All right, Twitter questions. This one comes from Twice Eye Slasher. He says, do you guys think that because records are carried over from Spring Split, early split hot take reactions based on records will be more tame than usual? For example, previously IMT's record would just say 3-0 to start summer instead of 10 and 11.
You tell me, have we been hot taking this episode or not?
Yeah, I would say they have not been, because people are not even really like thinking of it in that context, and people are just like, we're back at summer. Did you see this game? Cloud9 suck ass, and then the next game they win, like Cloud9 are back. They're fine. It's okay. They recovered. So I would say so far it has not happened, especially with some Mark takes.
I think it's probably like a little toned down, but people are still a little scared for TL and C9 the way that I think they would be if records didn't carry over. I think people are still, being like, whoa, Immortals, that's actually pretty good. Like, let's see what more you can do, because, names don't jump out of paper. The same way when Dig did well at the start of last split, people weren't instantly like, yo, this is the best team in the world. It's measured not just because of the record, but because of the players being younger, more developmental players on that roster.
What do you think about then like FlyQuest, right? Because I do think, I'm kind of more on the moderate take, right? Where it's like, no one's really talking about FlyQuest. They went 2-1, which is actually significantly better if you look at kind of like how they were doing last split. So I do think in some ways it's like the big stories. I'm on the same page with you, where it's
that
like,
might be true.
The teams that people are really focused on, if you were like really good or really bad, like really subverting expectations extremely, then you kind of are still like, yeah, oh my God, Immortals is so good. Oh my God, EG is so bad. But for the teams that are like, more moderate improvements, I think it becomes less obvious, right? Because FlyQuest still has like 8 wins or whatever on the season. So the record still looks pretty bad. So it's maybe harder to see the kind of smaller improvements, but cool question. All right, we got another one here. This one comes from, sorry in advance, Bo Hao Zhang. He says, hey, Isaac, I have a question for the dive. With the introduction of Gwen and Viego, it feels like there's too many OP champions that must be banned as the meta forms. Not to mention non-meta targeted bans against certain players. Will we be seeing certain teams, especially ones on red side, skip bans to ensure they get more OP picks through the draft?
I think that this is kind of being convoluted by the fact that they haven't had much time to figure out matchups and counters for them as well, because Viego's been disabled for so long for bugs. Pro players have not invested time into this champion. Gwen, released very recently, they have not put time into this champion. I'm of the opinion that Gwen is definitely overtuned. I'm not really at that strong of a point with Viego, because Viego, to me, in looking at that champion design, it's supposed to be a Katarina-esque reset-based super pop-off snowbally champion.
With iframes.
But you can also have, that definitely helps in those instances. You can also have, if he gets completely dumpstered in lane, this is now an underfed, melee carry that has to rely on teammates and maybe the fact that his passive allows him to steal opponents' souls. Maybe he's got more comeback mechanics, because even if he's underfed, then your teammates can carry you by killing someone that's better, and then you get to become that person and use their items. So there's some leeway there, but regardless, the overall situation I think is really fun right now and exciting, because there isn't as much info and time already invested in fully figuring this out. Meanwhile, we're just coming off of our extended playoffs patch run, where like LCS was on the same patch for what felt like ages, and almost all matchups were completely figured out.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff too is like how comfortable players are, not just in counters, but also playing it themselves. Like, I was just checking quickly, and I might have this wrong, but it says that Viego was only 46.7% pick ban, which, from a power level wise, I'd be like, wow, that sounds really low. But if you're talking about like all the bugs that maybe people weren't putting time in, I didn't even think it was going to be enabled this week, heading into the week. So I think it's something where the whole meta as a whole isn't really solved yet. versus like for an example of a time where this was the case that the person's asking about, when it was Rengar, LeBlanc, Kha'Zix, and there was one other assassin that was really nutty. There were 4 basically. And like if you banned 3, the other person just first picked the other one, and it was actually a waste of a strategy. And FlyQuest, with High still playing as the mid laner, that was when they just left everything open, and they would just like play it better than you when they got these really scrappy games with tons of assassins everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we might be heading for a meta like that, but I'm not convinced yet.
And it's also convoluted because there are different takes on this actual emergence of the meta. Yes, there are like the melee heavy, everybody dive in. And then there's also like 100 Thieves and Crowd over here that are like, oh, we can also buff up and shields and healing and type of stuff. So, it's individual matchups and then, what type of team are you playing into?
Yeah, it's very cool. The only thing I'll say is that with the FlyQuest point, I always think that's interesting because when champions reach a certain level of OP, and it's just kind of like universally accepted, this is permaban, pros often stop practicing it.
Yeah.
Because they feel it's a waste of time. So sometimes if you do continue to put the practice in on one of those champions, you leave everything open, you trade OPs, like you say, you're just more comfortable. Cool question. Last one here comes from Juan Felipe. He says, what do you like most about being back at the studio? For me, it's just like playing off body language, right? Like being able to like see how people are acting, how people are reacting. Like people always comment that there's better energy when you're in studio, and it's just because of like just funny stuff that just happens, right? Like I see Mark making a funny face, I start laughing, he's like, why are you laughing? He's giving me a weird look, right? And it just like creates these funny situations. And it's the same thing with casting. You like look over at your casting partner, you see them getting super hyped up or like laughing at something that happens on the screen, so it's like you're on the same page with making a joke about it or whatever. It's just like there's just better energy. It's just fun.
Yeah, I mean, we've been running our show for a year and a half with ankle weights on, and like it's so extreme to me, this aspect that you're talking about of body language, but it's also hand signaling. We do a whole bunch in casting, so you don't talk over people, like interrupting
or TriCast.
Yeah, like we literally, the reason we haven't had TriCast in a year and a half is because you need that so much when involving multiple people. And it's just like after so long not being able to have this, we're like dusting off the cobwebs and everything still, and it's just like it feels like that scene in Naruto. What's his name? Gaara? Or
he's fighting Gaara. It's Rock Lee. It's
Rock Lee. When Rock Lee's like boom, and he just takes off the weights.
Mark is insulted.
So the funny thing is about anime versions of that.
Close.
You were. It was a good try.
I respect you at least knew one of the people's names. The funny thing about that is, unlike anime, training with ankle weights and things is actually a horrible idea, and no one does it because it's dumb and it just trains you wrong. Like
people train underwater. Athletes do underwater sprints and stuff like that.
Resistance training is a thing, but just wearing
Goku did that shit. So
just wearing ankle weights around for a year and a half, let's say, that's dumb. That will hurt you when you take them off. Generally don't do that. So that's what actually makes it a good comparison for coming back in the studio. There's like things that we have to relearn.
I did hurt myself this week. That's for sure.
I didn't mean physically hurting yourself. I just mean that like
emotionally.
Like
no, I actually did.
Some of the people had never actually that like are on the AD now had never done an in-studio AD broadcast. And there's like talkback buttons to like mute and cough if you need to, and like all these like different things that you have to relearn. Like doing an online broadcast and then coming in studio isn't like, oh, I'm freed and now I can do everything. It's like we have to like get all the right graphics packages back in the wall, and like it's like a slow growth thing. I'm excited about it. In case this isn't coming across clear, I'm excited that we're taking the ankle weights off, but you have to still retrain the correct muscle group.
That's his happy face.
Yeah, that's his happy. Oh God, that's terrifying. I mean, and what I will say is even like everyone that's working on the show knows that there's lots of things that we can still get better.
Yeah,
but that is exciting because I would say that the baseline is just so much higher, right? Like us just sitting here, like the studio is gorgeous. It just changes how it feels like to be on the show, right? Like where we sit at the caster desk, having the stage behind us, being able to turn around and see the players, and like it's just fucking cool, right? Yeah. Like it feels good. I'm so excited.
We're not even in our final form because we don't even have the audience noise.
You had your Telestrator segment. You couldn't even press buttons on it yet.
Yeah, we were like, we don't even have half the tools and stuff, and we're already like, oh, thank you.
Get ready. It's going to be so dope.
Yeah, it's going to be sick. LCS is scaling. Invest now. All right, that'll wrap it up for our first episode back of The Dive. It feels good. Thank you, Honda, for making this episode possible, and for all the episodes at home as well. They were cool too. And remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode of The Dive. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. Also, not only can you send us questions on Anchor.fm, we are happy to take some of your hot takes and react to them. So we're going to just rip off Hotline League. If you want to send us your hot takes on Anchor.fm, you can do that as well.
And bet ideas as well.
Ideas.
As we tried to come up with one live, and that was terrible. I think we wasted a lot of time there.
Yep, that's true. All right, and keep sending us the Twitter questions, hashtag the dive LOL. Finally, make sure, I already said that, the Summer Split continues second week this Friday, starting with TSM versus 100 Thieves, 3 p.m. Pacific on Friday. It's going to be a banger. We'll see you then.